Application Security Weekly delivers interviews and news from the worlds of AppSec, DevOps, and all the other ways people find and fix software flaws. Join us as we explore how the latest news highlights modern security practices or reminds us of the missing ones. We also bring insights from interviews on topics from training to threat modeling, from open source tools to cloud-native techniques, plus an occasional reference from new wave to synthwave. Find us at securityweekly.com/subscribe or look for Application Security Weekly wherever you pick your podcasts.
Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. For this segment, I have with me Mr. Tyler Robinson. Tyler, good to see you, man.
It's good to be back, buddy. It's been too long.
I know, right? Mr. Aaron Leland is here with us. Aaron, welcome.
Good to see you today, Paul. That's a lovely hat you've got on.
Hey, thanks, man. I like your t-shirt. Let's see. So just a quick announcement before we get started. Make sure you subscribe to the Below the Surface podcast by Eclipsium in partnership with CRA. Myself and Scott Shefferman host the show. We've had the pleasure of speaking with some amazing guests. Zeno Kova, founder of the Open Source Security Training 2, Richard Hughes, the founder of the Linux Vendor Firmware Service, and many others. You can find all the episodes at eclipsium.com/podcast and subscribe using your favorite podcast catcher. You can follow Security Weekly on LinkedIn for updates across the organization, show highlights, and more. You can find us by searching for Security Weekly Productions. Sid is a serial cyber entrepreneur and known for his expertise in the field of IT security. He has been a speaker trainer at many Blackhat, DEF CON, Hack in the Box, and other events. Sid is the CEO and the leader of cyber consultancy and education firm, the SecOps Group, and also the co-founder, investor in other cybersecurity companies such as Pure ID, Red Hunt Labs, and many others. Sid, welcome to the show.
Hey, Paul. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
And we also have Rohit with us as well. And Rohit will be in the technical demo. Is that true?
That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Welcome, Rohit. Welcome, both of you, to the show. I want to start just by talking about a little bit of the journey, because Sid, you were on an episode a while back. Gosh, I don't even remember what we talked about, man, but you were on the show a while back. But you've had an interesting, I think, journey from that time until now. And you reached out and you're like, dude, I'm doing this new thing. I'm like, that sounds like a cool thing. We should talk about it. So tell us about the journey.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks. It has been precisely 10 years, a decade. I have lost some hair in the journey, but we'll talk about that some other day. Yeah, so look, I started as a techie, and I think most of the audience of this podcast would have a pen testing career or pen testing aspect sometime in their careers. So I started off as a pen tester. I think back then when I reached out and I first came to your show, I was doing some research on SQL injection, some Oracle databases, etc. And that was pretty early on. I went on to transition from a techie to an entrepreneur. I started a business called Not So Secure in 2013. That business did fairly well. And in 2018, it got acquired by a company called Claranet Group. And that was my first exit from the entrepreneur side of things. And then I think similar to yours, Paul, congratulations to you too.
Thank you.
You too. And then, 2 years later, I had the entrepreneur itch again. And I said, surely I can do this again. And surely I can dwell on that confidence and dwell on those experience and expertise and hopefully make lesser mistakes and get there faster. So I started the SecOps Group. And by the grace of God, it's been going pretty well.
And so was one of the first things you did at the SecOps Group is to establish a new certification?
Right. So what we did was in a previous business and in my previous 10, 15 years leading up to SecOps Group, I have been extensively involved with the training side of businesses or training business. And in this business, I had a pretty clear mindset that I don't want to go and rinse and repeat the same thing again. What I wanted to do was look at the industry and look at and question how are we doing things. And, I think there are certain leaders in the industry. Offensive security certainly comes to mind as a clear-cut leader in that space. And then there are others who are trying to follow, the same mold. And we wanted to do things slightly differently. So for me, the first thing was, we are not going to run a training course and then at the back end run an exam and say, look, if you pass the exam, you become certified X or certified Y. We said let's just differentiate between trainings and the exams, and we will be an examining body. We will only run exams, and by virtue of having a clear stand on what is training and what is exam, we will be in a better position to steer the ship, so to speak. So we came up with our exams. We run two silos of exams: essentials exams and professional exams. Essentials are entry level, professionals are for professionals like pen testers. And they are 4-hour exam or 8-hour exam, and they are hands-on practical hacking, and we are doing a few things different in there.
Yeah. So what's different about the certification program? Like, what was the specific problem you're trying to solve?
Okay, so first of all, if we dig deep, okay, the amount of competition in the sector to be able to offer credible exams is not as intense or is not as much. So by having an independent party like us jump in and say, look, hey, we also offer exams, it throws in a little bit more competition, keeps everyone honest. That's just my take on it. Then there are a number of things we need to question. What is the current? We want to offer an exam which is very relevant to the industry, which is offered by pen testers to pen testers, and modern. So we're not asking people to pop boxes using MS 08067. It's done with 2023 in mind. We are looking at questioning a few things how industry is doing. Typically, with the standard that industry is following, for example, and again, I'm just picking a few points here and there. Current schema in which most people offer their exams is you take an exam, you get a 24-hour window, at the end of which you have to submit a report, and then you get judged on a number of things, and then you get a result 10 days later. Our view is we want to provide an online and on-demand exam. If you want to take an exam today, you can take it today, and you will get the result instantly after you finish the exam. You don't have to wait for 2 weeks, etc. I am not bought into that. I understand and appreciate that people need to have soft skills to be able to do consultancy. People need to be able to document their findings, etc. But here's the question: if English is not your first language or it's not your strength, but you're an awesome hacker, do you not belong to the industry? Should we alienate you from these exams just because your English is not good? So, and that is something which is very close to my heart. So we decided to write exams in which we test people on their hacking ability and not just on soft skills ability. There are other ways through which you can test soft skills, and if it is very important to you, you can probably find a way to work with that person and supplement his lack of soft skills ability should you need to. Things like 24-hour format, we're living in an age where people's well-being and mental health and all of that is very important. Do we really want to push the industry into, look, a good exam means it has to be 24-hour intense exam, which means you will have to compromise your sleep? Or can we not come up with exams in which we can still test people's ability in a 7 or 8 hour window, or even less? And the secret to that is to write questions or to give a guided approach to questions to still be able to do that. So
Sid, I had a question on that. So is your certification more of a modular thing where people can like certify in certain modules as to not like lump it all into a 24-hour exam?
We have a number of exams. First of all, we have an exam called Certified AppSec Pen Tester, which is very popular. It's a 4-hour exam. People will log into the exam portal. They will click on Start Exam. They will then have access to our exam VPN server. They will also have access to an exam portal through which they will go and answer a series of questions like, hey, this is a SQL injection lab, and you have to identify 3 flags which are placed in database in some way, shape, or form, and submit them. And similarly, for example, there might be other business logic issues or IDOR findings and things like that they have to do. Similarly, we have a network pen testing exam in which people may be asked to compromise an Active Directory, identify certain flags, some Linux hacking, some Docker hacking, some cloud hacking, etc.
I see. That's really nice that it is, I think, what I was thinking of, that it's a little more modularized so that you don't have to sit for that 24-hour exam to give people a little more flexibility. And I like that for like a number of reasons, right? But also, it sounds like you've decoupled the training from certification. As we all know, there's a lot of programs out there that do the training and the certification. And that's not necessarily wrong, but I think it also speaks to people's schedules and the budget they have to spend on training and certification. Those training and certification programs tend to be a little pricier. But I like that you've just focused on, we're going to create a great certification. Was that the goal?
Yeah, the goal was to put our name out there and say, look, we think it's a good exam, come and take it, and also make it affordable. Let's be honest about it. We don't necessarily want these exams to be paid for by the enterprises. And on our website, for example, if you look at it, we are offering these exams at a fairly reasonable prices, which people can afford from their own pocket, and people can also afford to fail and reapply, right? Don't forget that not everybody is going to pass these exams first time. Some people might take 2, 3, even 4 attempts to pass these exams, and we the price should reflect that, rather than mortgage your house.
Is it the full price each time I retake it, or is there some like retake kind of discount?
Right now, it is full price every time you take it.
Okay, and roughly, what do these cost, Sid? On average.
So right now we are offering the 4-hour exam through our website as £250, which is what, some $300, $400, $350.
Okay, and now you've done this in collaboration with Blackhat.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that. So I mean, it's hard. I just want to point out from a business standpoint, I think it's hard to just stand up a certification on your own and say, hey, everyone should come to us for certification. When you attach it to a name like Blackhat, I imagine like you had to work very closely with them, and you've been a Blackhat trainer before, right? So you had a relationship, but now you've got the Blackhat name behind it, which I think is cool.
So I'm really grateful and honored to be associated with Blackhat. I don't take that for granted any day of my life. But my pitch point to Blackhat or to other conferences was pretty simple. All conferences, the current model, if you look at, they offer attendees various avenues to learn and progress their knowledge. Training is one, briefings is another, Arsenal is another, paid sponsor sessions, etc., etc. When people come to these conferences, mostly they will show their ID to collect their badges. So you've already validated who they are before you handed out their badge to them. If we can run independent exams, good exams, which you have already seen, etc., in a proctored environment in a room, then there is a scope for that. People will take on that because people don't just want to learn. You are now creating an audience for people to validate what they have learned. And maybe if it does not automatically feed back into the training process, it will feed back in next year or the years to come.
Yeah, but it's another reason for someone to attend Blackhat, right? So it was a mutually beneficial relationship, which I really like.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully, and now, our exams are also available through DEF CON, and we are also approaching other conferences as well to follow that mold. And look, my take on this, Paul, my vision with this is not just to run my own exam at Blackhat. My vision with this is slightly bigger than this. And this is how I hope the industry will change. Just like we have the briefings track, and in that you will have numerous sub-tracks and a schedule for each track. My vision with this is that the exams track at conferences will be here to stay. And under that, right now I'm running Blackhat certified pen tester. Maybe in next year there will be a XYZ certified malware analyst or XYZ certified Android pen tester, etc. So there will be a whole series of exams, and from these independent examining bodies who probably have some credibility in that space to run those for them under a reputed conference like Blackhat or DEF CON, etc. And hopefully in 5 years from now we will look back at this and say, how did we not do this all this while?
Yeah. Now,
what are some of the environment setups and domains that you're actually testing for competency? Because when you talk about just being a certified pen tester, right? Like, are we doing web apps? Are we doing online cloud? Are we looking at Active Directory? There's a substantial number of domains that usually get covered in these exams. So kind of what's your layout and environment and domains that you're testing for?
Right, and then that's a very good question. So I think your audio was not very clear, but for the audience perspective, the question is about the syllabus of the exam, right? It could be very open-ended syllabus. So how do you differentiate between what is included, what is not included? Is that right, Rene?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. So And I think the answer to that is because we are not offering trainings and we are keeping exams separate to the trainings. The key is to have a very detailed exam syllabus printed out, and we've gone to great length in explaining the difficulty level. So we've said that anybody who has done 2+ years of professional pen testing should be ideal for these exams. We've listed out the exam syllabus in as much detail as we can. This is the network hacking portion. This is the web hacking portion. We are expecting you to know how to exploit SQL injection, but we are not expecting you to know how to exploit a second order SQL injection because it's not an advanced class. So we've tried to define it in as black and white as possible. But look, this being the first exam, there will be some few things here and there. We will only learn and improve from here.
Sid, I had a question and then I lost it.
Please.
I'm sorry. It happens sometimes. Oh, I know where I was going. It took me a second, but when enterprises or businesses in general are looking at hiring security professionals, they typically have a set of criteria, and so often that set of criteria has some issues with it, right? Like they look for specific certifications or they look for specific, experience with a technology. Are you working with industry to help not just recognize this certification, but overall improve the hiring process in cybersecurity?
Well, that's the hope, Paul, and I really hope that in a few years' time we become not just as a business. Obviously, it will be good for business to be recognized as an industry-leading certifying authority. But our sincere hope is to change how these exams work, and then it becomes a household name, etc. So we have ambitions. Certified pen tester exam is probably a very common exam. You can find so many other alternatives or competitors who will test you and examine you on the same principles. But we have ambitions. So, for example, we've just launched an Android pen tester exam. So if you look at what other alternatives are available for an Android pen tester to certify his knowledge in that space, you will find the options are fairly limited compared to a generic pen tester exam. And then, you throw in, and then you question, is that exam modern? Is it actually talking about the vulnerabilities which you expect to find in 2023? And is it practical? So you will find immediately that we have something which the industry don't have. And we have ambitions to continue in that vein. We have ambitions to launch an iOS exam, then an AWS hacking exam, then a GCP hacking exam. So hopefully create a niche for ourselves as well.
Yeah, because I find now as our industry grows, we tend to specialize more, and we find that businesses are also looking for that specialization. So I think having a certificate as your foot in the door to that specialization is important, but also important for the industry to recognize that, yes, this is certifying to a certain body of knowledge by having this certification, right? Because I think it's unfair to say you have to have 5 to 7 years of reverse engineering experience.
Right.
How do I get that if I can't get a job? Is that chicken and egg problem?
Absolutely. And Paul, to your point, the reverse is also true, right? So it's all good to focus on specialist exam, but don't forget the audience entering into our industry as well,
right.
Or the audience who is actually doing security as not their primary role but a secondary role. I mean, think of people like a developer, for example. You have to have security in mind to develop code. A network architect, you can't develop a network architecture without security in mind. So we have taken the pains to actually also launch entry-level exams, which are basically multiple choice questions, 60 minutes, but they are again scenario-based questions. So you can't just, and they are all AI proctored, they are not open internet, etc. But we are trying to cater to that audience as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now you also have what I love is you've got a free penetration testing lab that people can sign up for. It's called vulnmachines.com. I know there's a lot of options out there that people have. I mean, you can create your own lab. There's a whole host of other ones. Tell us about the vulnmachines.com.
And maybe if you allow Rohit, he can share his screen quickly and we can walk you through quickly. If that's okay, Rohit?
Yeah, let's do it. I guess before Rohit does that, I guess just kind of give us what's the purpose of vulnmachines.com and what can you expect from maybe people who don't, haven't played in a lot of these various labs that are available?
Right. So honestly, when we were making it, we know the role the community has played, and this is not me giving any BS, to the audience. The community has played a big role in making me who I am, and a part of me feels that I owe it back to the community. We are also a consultancy shop as a business. If we do not provide our credibility in that space, then how do we stand on our own 2 feet and say how are we better than our competitors? So the best way to do it is to give back to the community, create some amazing hack labs that maybe some things that we found in our actual pen testing experience, or we found that this bug was niche, maybe people should come and practice it alongside us. So that's how we came up with Wool Machines. Every time we find something new, niche, it could be a generic CVE, or it could be, hey, we found a double decoding SQL injection, or we found some weird and wonderful cloud hack. So we put a vulnerable instance on the platform. People can come and practice it. There's also a write-up if they can't solve it. Because it's a free platform, we are not able to provide any support. So to supplement that, we are able to show them a video tutorial or a write-up that they can follow step-by-step guides.
So completely free. I sign up for the website from within my web browser. I can then do these free labs and access resources of vulnerable machines that got spun up on the fly for my instance, right?
That is absolutely right. Yeah, that is absolutely right. Most of the things are on the internet, so the instance will probably be shared with other users, but there might be one or two challenges in which we might give you VPN access.
I think also don't scan the internet. Use Shodan to find vulnerable things and practice there. I think that's the other reason why having free resources like this is also important.
Yeah, and you know what? This is a big thing. When you are trying to do something good for the community, that is something that you have to be acutely aware of. That not everybody is there to appreciate the goodwill, and you need to be mindful of the abuse cases.
Right. And so you're going to show us a demo in some PHP type juggling exercise.
That's right. Yeah. So we can pass control to Rohit now, and Rohit can just walk us through.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the Wool Machine. So if you can scroll through, Rohit, there are different challenges. There's a OSINT lab, there's a cloud lab, and then inside cloud labs there are multiple challenges there. Similarly, web hacking, some basics, some intermediate, some advanced labs, OGNL injection, serialization problems, etc. Some blockchain hacking as well. This is something that we also do. So it's a pretty fun place to be.
I'm just wondering quickly that if I work myself through all your labs, will that stand me in good stead for some of your exams? Is there a bit of a crossover there?
At the end of the day, it's all knowledge. If you acquire knowledge through whatever means possible. Is that a cliche? Does it sound? Am I sound too old?
No, I do. No, it's good.
We do not repeat. The answer is, and we have a number of challenges. So if you take the exam today and you take the exam next month, you may not get exactly the same questions again, and the flags will get rotated, etc. We have a few things here and there, but at the end of the day, you will put yourself in a better position to pass by acquiring knowledge through one of the many ways, one of them being Wool Machines.
And so, Rohit, you were going to show how we use the labs to look at some PHP type juggling vulnerabilities, correct?
So, yeah, we can pass. Rohit, you can do maybe start off with a quick presentation that you prepared. Is that okay, Paul?
Please do.
And then we can move on to the demo.
Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us today. We will talk about uncovering the risk of PHP type juggling. So let me start with a little introduction about myself. Myself, Rohit Misuriya, and I'm a principal security consultant at the SecOps group. I do research about security topics, and we are going to cover one of them today in this session. I also do blogging sometimes. I've written a blog about the same PHP type juggling. You can find it on our website, secops.pro. You can contact me via LinkedIn or on Twitter with the mention handles anytime. Let's start with today's topic. Okay, so today we are going to cover about PHP type juggling, how it works, how it can be exploited, and how dangerous it could be. We'll also cover it in a practice lab, and then we will talk about the recommendations, how we can patch this vulnerability, how we can escape our application from getting exploited by this vulnerability. So let's start with a little introduction about PHP. What is PHP? PHP is a server-side scripting language and probably the oldest server-side language. And because it is the oldest one, it is pretty much compatible with every service which is required for web development. It is basically designed for web development only. It is an open source language, which means that anyone can contribute to its development and improvement. It can be used for creating various type of application. I mean, literally, we can use it for a simple web application to a complex management type application, and it will run as smooth as the Hello World program. And that's the reason, even after many vulnerabilities, it has still been used by many major platforms like WordPress, Facebook, Wikipedia, Laravel, and so on. Now, PHP has 5 data types: integer, float, string, and 2 data structures, array and objects. Integer had numbers, float has the real numbers, like you can see on the screen, 1.1, and strings have the string. Like PHP, or PHP is something that we can understand, something like that. And 2 data structures, arrays and objects. Now, as we know about the PHP, let's move to the PHP type juggling. So what is type juggling? Here, type juggling refers to a functionality of PHP in which PHP engine converts the data types into a common one before comparing them. Now the question is why we need to convert the data type. So to answer this question, we need to understand how PHP detects the data type of any variable. For example, there are 2 variables, ABC and XYZ, where we assign a value 123 to ABC and PHP string to XYZ variable. Now PHP know that 123 is not a string, it is an integer. So it will set the data type of ABC to integer and data type of XYZ to string. This is how PHP set the data types of the variables. Now, if we wish to compare both, then it is not possible because they are different data types. So to solve this problem, PHP engineers came with a solution called type juggling, in which PHP converts the data type of XYZ to integer before comparing them. I mean, it was in a string, but before comparing them, it will convert the data type into a common one. So because ABC is an integer, it will convert the data type of XYZ to an integer. Now that XYZ does not have any integer value, but the data type of XYZ is integer, the PHP engine will automatically assign a value 0 to XYZ variable. If it had some integer value at the starting of the string, like in the second example, we can see it has 4 horses. Then PHP engine will convert this string to integer 4 before comparing it, yielding the condition true. Now this solution might work, but if you see from a security point of view, this is not the right, because that second variable does not have any integer value and still has been assigned 4. So this comparison will give us a false result. I mean, we know that the ABC is not equal to the XYZ in the second example also, but still is giving us a true, which is wrong. And this is the point where we will focus today. Now we'll come to the PHP comparison methods. You can see the first example. PHP is trying to compare an integer with a string and giving us a false result. In the very next example, we can see that. Yes.
Rohit, sorry to speak over you. Hey, Paul, I have just had a text and there is a slight emergency and I need to step out. But if it's okay with you, Rohit can carry on.
Yeah, no worries, dude. Good luck.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, but Rohit will do a great job.
No worries.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So in the very next example, we can see that developer wants to compare the password coming into the post request with the string password. And if the comparison result true, then this user can log into the application. Now here comes the problem. As we can see at the first example, if the user passes 0 as the password, then he gets to log into the application without any problem, even when he doesn't know about anything about the password.
And Rohit, that's because when PHP does the comparison, a string, just a basic string with no numbers inside the string will evaluate to 0 and match the integer 0.
That's correct.
Yeah, in comparison. I gotcha.
Yes. Okay, so this could lead to a critical issue of account takeover, like you can see on the screen. That if user passes 0, then he gets to log in. We don't need to know the password. Now coming to the magic hashes. First, we need to understand what is magic hash. In PHP, if any value that starts with 0e followed by any number, then it will consider that value as a number 0. Now, the reason behind this consideration is the scientific notation 0e followed by any number as standing for 0 to the power of some value, which is always 0. Like you can see in the first example, 0e99 equals to 0 into 10 to the power of 99. But no matter how many times you will multiply with 0, it will always be 0. So that's why it will consider 0. In the second example, you can see that developer is creating a MD5 hash of some value and then comparing it with 0, which is resulting true. And the reason behind this is that the MD5 of this value will start with 0e followed by numbers. You can see in the second line. So PHP engine will consider it as 0 and compare it with 0, yielding the condition true, which is not right again. Now let's jump to the practical lab. Here at the SecOps group, we believe in practical demonstration. So let's start with our lab. You can find this lab on our platform, Wall Machine. You need to log into the application and navigate to the type-juggling lab. I'd set up the same lab in my local machine for this session. So we'll continue to that. And in order to solve this lab, we need to go with the white box approach. Let's begin with the lab. Okay, so once you log into the Wall Machine platform, you can see all the labs here, and here is one PHP type-juggling lab. We also provide the write-ups with the lab. Sometimes we also provide the video demonstration with the lab. So if any user gets stuck somewhere, they can directly jump into the write-up and videos and play with the lab. Let's start with the lab. Okay, so I also set up the same lab on my local machine. It is similar to the Wall Machine. Okay, so in this one, you can see there's a login page and there's one functionality, forget password. And we can also see an option for downloading the source code. So because we are going to use the white box approach, we will download the source code. Let's see. Okay, so in the source code, you can see there are some PHP files and some logo files with some style files. So we'll directly jump into the PHP files. So in the first file, index file, you can see it is nothing but just an HTML code with the login form. So you can ignore this and you can directly jump to the reset password functionality. Okay, so in this page, you can see it is including two files, mail.php and sql.php, and then starting your session. And it has 4 functions. And after the functions, it has a condition of checking whether the request is post or get. So if the request is post, then it will generate a link with the username, the forget password link. And then in the function, you can see that after generating the link, it will send the link to the user's email. Now, if the link is get, the request is get, then it will check for the link. It will validate the link. And if the link is perfect, if the user is authorized for the password, you can change the password. So let's start with the functions. So in the first function, you can see that it is just a redirection function. It has been called numerous times. If the condition are not true, then you will be redirected to the next page. Now, coming down to the first function, generate link. So in the generate link function, you can see it is for taking the username, and then it is creating a random token using the random int function. And in the next line, you can see it is taking the current time, the integer value of current time, basically, and then making a SQL query to update this random token into the database with the same username that we passed. And in the next line, you can see it is fetching the password from the database for the same user. And in the last, it is creating the forget password link. But in this link, we can see that it is fetching the server name, the current domain. It is taking the username. It is taking the integer value of current time, and it is calling a function generate sig, which is here. And you can see in this function, it is taking username, the random token, integer value of time, and the user's password, and creating a SHA-256 hash of this value and taking the only first 8 characters of this value. So it will create a link like that. So let me just quickly show you this, how the link will look like. Okay, so the link will look like this. First, the domain, and we are assuming that the username will be admin because most of the application has the admin user, and the integer value of current time, and the signature will look like this because it is taking only the first 8 characters of the hash. Now, to exploit this vulnerability, we need to create this one. So we will understand that later. Let's come back to the code. Okay. So this is how the link will generate. We call it password link. Now let's see how it is validating the link. So in this function, validate link function, it is taking the signature from the URL. It is taking the integer value of current time that we passed in the URL and the username. So it will fetch the token from the database that that it has updated in the previous function while generating the link. It will fetch the password from the database by the username only, and then it will check if the token is null. So this check is because if you do not if you didn't request it for the forget password link, then there will be no token because this function will never be called. So in that case, it will redirect us to index page. Now, in the next condition, we can see it is again calling a function token expiry. So in the token expiry function, you can see it is taking the integer value of current time and it is adding 6 hours into that time and subtracting that time, which means the link should not be older than 6 hours. If it is older than 6 hours, then it will not be valid and it will redirect us to the index page. Now, again, the next condition. In this condition also, it is calling the generate signature function again. But this time, it is taking the username from the URL, the token from the database, the current time and the password from the database. And it is comparing with the signature, and we are also passing the signature. So just notice this thing that we are passing the signature. So we control the signature, username, and the time. The token and the password has been patched from the database only. So now we know that username will always be admin, and the developer is using the loose comparison here, which means if we pass a hash, something like 0e followed by number, then we can bypass it, and we can bypass this condition. Now to do that, we need to understand that how it is generating the signature here and comparing with this. So it is calling the same function again, but this time it is taking the username admin that we passed, fetching the token from the database, and the integer value of current time. So we can use this integer value of current time in order to generate the signature, which will start with 0e followed by any number. So for example, I'll show you like this. Okay. So in the second line, we can see that we are passing the admin user. We are using the integer value of current time, and we are passing the signature as 0e followed by zeros. It can be anything. I mean, it can be any number. It is not necessary that we use only 0e followed by 0. We can use any number. So PHP will automatically consider this 0, and it will take this value, this time value, and the username and password and token from the database. So all we need to do is we need to brute force this thing, this time value, in order to get the hash value, which will start with 0e followed by number. And this only needs to be only the first 8 characters. I mean, it is only taking the first 8 characters, and we can go with that only. I mean, after 8 characters, it could be anything. Even if it is you having some ABC or any alphabet, that will be okay. So coming down to the back. Okay. So now we understand the validate link function. Now we use the exploit to get the right forget password link. So I created one exploit for this. We can also use the brute force functionality of Worksuite or any other tool. That will also work. Okay, so in this exploit, you can see that I am using Python. I just got the take the current time, created a function, converting that current times value into the integer, and calling the getLength function. So in the getLength function, you can see that I'm just using a random link. It is not the correct one. It is not the correct time. I'm just taking an invalid link and just fetching the length of that response of this link, so that I can compare this length with the valid one in order to get the right link. So again, coming back to the previous function, in this one, you can see that I'm just taking the time value from here and using a while loop and increasing the time value every time. And this time I'm just comparing it with the length, the previous length that we got from this function. And if the length is not matched with this one, I mean, if the length is different from the invalid link, then that is the right link. That is what the idea about this. So the idea behind this exploit. Let's run this and see what happens. Sometimes it takes time. And one more thing, in the meantime, I can show you one more thing, that link cannot be older than 6 hours, but it can be, the link can be anything after that. It can use current time or next week time, and there is no limit for the upcoming time. So if we immediately get the correct link, okay, we already got that. Okay, so here we can see that this is the correct time that is manipulating the function to create a hash which will start with 0 followed by numbers. Now let's use this thing. Okay, we just got the flag and the lab is completed. Now coming back to the slides. Okay, so now let's talk about recommendations. So we should always use the strict comparison rather than using the loose comparison, the double equal. We should always use the triple equal. Like you can see in the example, first I was using the double equal, yielding the condition true, which is not right. But when I use triple equal, it is stopping the PHP engine to convert the data type into a common one. It will just compare the values as they are. So that is why we are getting the correct answer in this one. Now, for the comparison functions, there are many comparison functions in PHP, which allows us to use the strict option to compare them strictly rather than using the loose comparison. For example, you can see I'm just using in array function and trying to find 0 into that array. But because I didn't use any strict option for this, it is giving me a true answer. I'm getting true. But in the third line, we can see that I'm using a strict option here. And that is why I'm getting false result, which is correct because there is no 0 in these strings. Next thing is that we can do is avoid the typecasting for the comparison. So what is typecasting? That we are forcing the PHP engine to convert the data type from one to another. For example, we can see that there is a string, post string, and we are forcing the PHP engine to convert it into the integer. So even if we are using the strict comparison, PHP engine will convert this string and takes the first integer. It will take the integer from the first place only. So it will convert the string to 4 and then compare it, yielding the condition true, because now the string is not the string, it is converted to the integer. So even if you are using strict comparison, just avoid the typecasting for the comparison. So that's it from my side. Thank you.
Sorry, Rohit, my mic was muted. In your example, you would use the triple equals to enforce
Yes.
better comparison on your sig variable in your example, correct?
Yes, if we use triple equal rather than using the double equal, then there will be no vulnerability in that flag.
I got you. Yeah, because then the attacker can just already knows one of the values that's used in to create the password reset URL, which is actually pretty common. There actually has been a history of vulnerabilities in the password reset in the tokens too. Also, the time thing is probably wasn't implemented correctly either, because you'll be able to brute force the time.
Yes. And we can propose the time. There is no limit for that.
Awesome. Tyler, Aaron, any questions, thoughts?
Is there like any sort of crossover that this can be done in JavaScript?
In JavaScript, if this is the issue, if there is any type juggling issue in the JavaScript, then this could be possible thing. But I don't think there is any issue of type juggling.
Yeah, I think there's like type coercion or something in JavaScript, but I'm not an expert, sorry.
Yeah, and also for PHP, if you search around the internet, you can find tables that describe how the type juggling is confused, or better put, there's like a table that says if the comparison is this way and the variable types are this will be the condition that is found. So I think it's helpful to have like one of those tables. You can find them online. We've talked about them before too, but it's nice having like a chart to understand all that, because PHP does some weird stuff, as you pointed out, Rohit, when it does type comparison.
Yes. Yes, PHP site. They have this table on their site also.
Yeah, awesome. Rohit, thank you very much. Sid had to drop, but thank you both for appearing on this edition of Paul Security Weekly. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. We'll see you next time. Over and out.